I'm Robert from Metallica.
Welcome. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Now, where have you been the last 4 years?
I don't even know anymore. It's all a big blur.
I know how that goes. At the risk of backtracking, and you've probably been through this a million times before, but not with me. I'm curious. Joining Metallica, run me through the idiot's version to what happened.
Well, first day of the audition was actually a fly on the wall kind of deal, just hanging out. Second day, I actually had to play with the band, but after the first day at 11 o'clock at night, when everybody was parting ways, Lars says, let's go get a drink. Let's go get a cocktail. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, got to have a drink with this guy. He might be my boss someday. And he kept me drinking until about 6 in the morning. And I had to play at 11 with these guys. So I always think that was sort of a testing ground for him, for the Viking.
Well, you mean to see if he could drink till 6 in the morning?
Well, yeah, I tried to set it up that way, I'm Mexican, so I can take down the tequila, but he was feeding Crown Royal and vodka into me. Anyway, that was a bit of an adventure, so I was in a painful state. Whenever I watch that Some Kind of Monster episode when I'm actually playing, and they show the other bass players and they show me, I just kind of cringe because I see the pain in me. And at that point, it just became sort of a big whirlwind wash cycle, because I thought immediately about what I needed to do as far as preparing for a band like Metallica, back catalog and learning the Saint Anger songs and just the workload. I was ecstatic and I was happy for about 2 minutes, and I was like, okay, I've got a lot of work to do.
Are you in spin cycle at the moment, or are you in rinse, or is it going round?
I'm probably in rinse cycle right now.
Excellent.
It's not so bad.
So you've been through the ringer, and yes. so you can look back now and think, what do you think?
Well, looking back again, one more thing is my first gig was actually at San Quentin State Penitentiary in front of a bunch of lifers and many inmates, California's hardest. So that was also a challenge. But I'll tell you an interesting story, though. Part of my audition was to actually play on a Saint Anger song. The guys, said, here, work on this song, we'll be back in a half hour, and Bob was sitting behind me. And so I'm looking at him, and I'd play something on the song, and I'd say, so what do you think about that? And he'd look at me and go, I don't know. I already played bass on this song. And I'm thinking, what the hell's going on? And obviously Bob played on the album. He was the bass player, and I was taking his gig for that song. So I was just like, dude, man, I thought you were the producer, And you got the assistant engineer there, and everyone's sort of looking at me like, what are you doing? Why are you playing on this song? As Lars and James kind of left the room. So that was a bit strange, because I think he felt very protective of his territory as a bass player. So I won't go there again.
I suppose they speak very highly of you. They're on record as, I say they, but clearly you're a member of the band now, but there was a bit of history with Jason, and I think things weren't entirely happy when they parted. I think there was a few harsh words said on both sides. I don't know whether that fence has been mended or not, but it's going to be difficult because people are always going to be looking at you and asking, well, what's the deal here?
One of the things that you got to understand about Metallica is, when it comes to Lars and James, you really got to let those guys kind of creatively pretty much run the show to a certain degree. When you see them going at it creatively, you got to let them have that, because that's where a lot of the magic comes from. And maybe Jason was a leader as well, and wasn't completely welcomed into that side of the spectrum in Metallica, So here we are now, James, I can tell you this, James is a lot less frail than when I first joined the band. It seemed like, whenever you were around the guy, it was like walking on thin ice or the tightrope or something. And that's the beauty of Death Magnetic, is as I always say, he's got his juju back, It's like he can pound the chest again and, keep it real.
Yeah, because, Rick Rubin, the man who never was.
Never was and still is, or
in terms of being a producer, being a hands-on producer,
right?
How much was he there?
Well, Rick was there in spirit. No, Rick was actually there when we were laying the bed tracks and organizing the arrangements. And I think the important thing is that Rick really, really made some great suggestions that were absolutely key in sort of the song structure, and especially vocally, the direction that James went with this. And that in itself was important. But it was also Rick who reunited again James and Lars to the past, to the early days of creating Metallica's music. You know, with Master of Puppets and Ride the Lightning, you know, in terms of how, you know, these albums were arranged and what were they thinking back then, you know, what were they listening to. So that to me was positive, because if any of us would have maybe tried to suggest, you know, what about some riffs from that vibe, you know, he might have looked at us and like, yeah, that was then, this is now, you know, move on, dude, whatever. So in that sense, I think Rick was key and smart to make that move for us.
All right, mate.
Okay.
Cheers. Thanks.
Great talking.